59?
Yeah.
In
No.
San Francisco?
Yeah.
I just saw it online.
I mean, like I tell people,
to join the Elks Club.
yeah, when I was in high school, we used to buy
They
Levi's
have
for $5.25.
business
25
class
cents was the
like
was the
29
tax.
Spanish
And
business.
a case of beer cost the same amount of money.
Hotel, indoor swimming
Well,
pool,
gas, I
gym.
don't know if the lowest gas price you can
You
remember. I
know,
can remember 15 cents a
the
gallon.
pictures
remember 18
could have
cents
been in
good in gas
1929
wars.
when
Oh,
they were
yes.
sitting there in their
Yes,
coat
there
and
it is.
tie having dinner because it's so fun and
I
fun.
got a couple bucks and you have a full tank of gas for
$89
the
a
week.
night.
But then I
Yeah.
had to remember how
I
much
said,
money
Mark,
I
I'm
had in my
moving up
pocket
there.
about that time, about
I'm
18
moving
cents.
up there.
My first, I was when I graduated.
So I
in
met one
72
of your
from
neighbors,
college.
one of your
I
Floral
was
Park
the third
neighbors,
highest
who
paid
recently
engineer on our
bought about a
graduation
year
class.
ago, like
The
a
other two went to
beautiful
New York
mid-century
for
place.
Kodak. They
Okay.
got paid $9.34 a month. I came at
But,
$9.15.
But he's like sold a couple
And that was,
startups and
man, that was
doing
a lot of
virtual
money back
reality
then.
stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of
I can remember
Wow.
if I said to myself, if I ever made $1,000 a
That's
month, I would be the richest
So
guy I
there's
know.
really, like right on Benton, it's so
We
funny
found
how
our
you
first
don't
savings
know
book after Rachel we got married.
architecture.
And I look at that, I gotta
learned it
laugh
over
because
the
I
25
lived
years I've been
for
here.
a
I knew
number of years.
Victorians, I understood those.
We didn't have more
They
than
can
$1,000
understand
in the
that
bank.
you had this
Every time we get
tutor
up,
and you
about
had this
1,500,
other
something
tutor
come up.
and you had
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
bungalow.
Oh, yes.
And then you had
And
this
then you have
brand
like
new.
story
First new car.
And
My dad was
then,
working
right,
for
but then
GM,
you
so
have this
he did get it on a
big,
bit of a discount.
you know, flat
It was
roof,
$3,800.
green,
Kayak and
chartreuse
everything on it,
green
you can
door,
imagine.
and not understanding the
It was
beauty of all the
first
Eichler
car I ever
houses
had- I ever
and
bought
the mid-century modern and everything
was
else.
a
And
29
he's got that
Model A.
house, it's a
Oh,
sweet
wow.
little two-bedroom.
I'm damned,
You
though, I
walk
wish I had a
in and
rumble
you
seat
see
in it.
Wow.
the
And
big,
I paid
big,
$50
big
for it.
windows,
Oh, wow.
floor to ceiling,
I wish I had it now.
and
And I sold it for $100.
just-
I thought, my God, I doubled my money.
Exactly.
1,800 square feet, but it feels huge.
I talked to my brother yesterday, and he lives in Lansing, Michigan.
Mid-century.
And
And
Oh,
our house-
That's been for sale.
Yeah. And
parents'
then,
rules had to be
you know, the
18 to drive. You had to buy the car from the sibling. I
of
could always
GG
use the
for
car.
GOP.
The first car that was passed between us all was
He's
a
in
Corvette.
West Floral Park in
A
there.
what?
A
They
Corvette.
redid
A
their
Corvair? Oh, I
Yes.
remember those well.
They
Yes,
made
they
it
burned a
super
lot of oil.
automatic,
And
mid-century.
so I asked him, I said, you
Like
ever
nifty
pull the
50s
front plug?
type
Okay.
stuff, and it's really
I said,
cool.
well, whoever
Yeah,
designed that
I
had
love
a
all
drain
the
plug
stuff
up
we
there.
have here.
And we
They,
sit
like,
down to
fully-
our
That's
house,
called
Wayne
atomic,
State,
the
fill that
nifty
trunk
50.
up
Well,
with
it's
ice.
like everything
all our
is kind
beer
of
in front of
rounded. It looks
And we drive in the state parks,
like,
right? And I drive in like this, and they say something wrong with your car. Oh yeah, I got to work on the springs. And I'm
Like
like,
stuff
oh,
like,
shit,
it's
blah,
like
blah, blah.
yeah, it's like jet
They never knows I
yes,
came out level
it's
because
called
how the beer was
atomic.
drunk and the
So
ice
we have,
melted.
do you know Alex Hart?
But we had a hell of a good
No.
I
time.
think he
We
is,
did. You didn't have much, but you had a hell of a good time.
I think he's Archie. He has an
Well, Mike, you grew up out here in
orange,
California.
Charger.
I was born in
His
Long
kitchen
Beach.
feels like
I moved to Santa
it's
Ana when I
coming
was 8
out
days
of,
old.
Oh,
the
wow,
Jetsons
okay.
and Archie.
And in fact, when I got out of the
comic book with
hospital, I
Veronica
moved
and,
parents lived in Santa Ana. And
Chrome.
then I moved to Orange when I was 6 months old, 601 North Batavia. And then we moved out to 12851 Lena Drive, right off Fairhaven between Yorba and Prospect in 1954, and we thought we moved out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, our street was the only street out there that had houses on it. And our house was the end of the street.
Oh wow, wow.
But everybody found us.
Behind,
And
they-
my dad
they built in all this stuff.
paid
Oh.
17,500 for it.
Like
It was on a
little
third of
Yes,
an
bits
acre.
of
yes.
color and like
Oh,
they have
God,
this
that's so small because in Orange we had one foot.
Oh, sure.
So we moved out of there.
he's one of the
Sure,
partners.
sure,
He's
sure,
retired, but he's
sure.
one of the partners at
And,
Amusement Park.
So amusement park is doing
we,
a 3-day seminar.
We moved out
Like
there,
for
paid $17,500 for it,
maybe it's
and
2
I
days,
just
or
sold
2
my
days.
mom and dad's old
For
house,
7
because it
pillars
became
and
mine after they both passed away, for $825,000.
You get ETAC with it.
I'm just glad it was in a trust, they put it in a trust, because the capital gains from 17.5 to 8 would have killed me.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh, that's funny. That is funny.
You have like Jason Holland.
yeah, 'cause the sad part
talking
about my case,
cars,
like,
and then you've got-
My parents sold the house we grew up in, so 850 square feet, 2 bedrooms, attic converted to a 3rd bedroom. But they sold that in 1978 for $24,000.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
My dad could buy it for 15. But obviously, it tells you what the neighborhood. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Obviously, it tells you what the neighborhood has done.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part of Detroit. Is
Oh,
it?
oh no.
I live right,
We always
right
park on Rock Street. because
half mile from 8 Mile Road.
so then you have
8 Mile Road?
Oh yeah.
Is that a bad area?
Well, 8 Mile is the dividing line between suburbs and Detroit.
Oh, okay.
And that's why there was a movie that Eminem made. It was called 8 Mile. You know that area. It's
If you know the area, you know exactly where he's talking
You know
about.
exactly. And you know the difference between north and south. Well, north of 8 Mile is Warren. And I grew up with a lot of kids out of Warren. A couple of years ago, I back there, I drove through it. Homes are 70, 80 years old, but nicely kept. No abandoned cars in the streets, no abandoned cars on the lawns. Homes and windows not busted out.
I mean,
not
there weren't any
abandoned.
cars on blocks and everything else.
I cross into 8 Mile, right at Shanner and 8 Mile. First thing I see is a car unblocked in the road, legally in the road. Abandoned homes. I go to my old church. The church is still good. It was built in '55. It's still good. They have a group of monks that have moved into that area, and it's kind of kept up the church. And kept up that area. So there's a nice area, but it's kind of around that neighborhood. Missing home, missing home, missing home, missing home. No abandoned home. Yeah, it's really it doesn't have to be. And then I drove by my old park, right across my parents' house. I mean, that was my playground. That was my
Yes,
crib, you know?
you knew that area well.
Oh yeah. And so anyway, notice all the fencing going. So I saw my brother-in-law later that day.
They
and so
have been doing
just
a
went by
whole
Mercer
series,
Park and my
Mike
fencing's
Weiss
gone. What's
and
going on?
Dave
Oh,
Kelly
well,
from
they
the
can't steal
chamber
copper
of a
anymore
whole
because
series
they have to
of,
leave too much information.
Yes.
But galvanized fencing, no one knows.
citizenship and
So he says all the fences in
leadership,
Detroit have been stolen. And he said the sad part about it is they have to cut 6-inch
They were
posts
doing a
to
series
get the
on
fence down, and no one hears a thing.
creative.
No,
It was like, or just leadership. They had the chief come into the office.
I take my
corporate
little
social
cans
responsibility.
down to Bruce Meadows, and all these homeless guys are coming in with a full of copper. And everything else.
Bumblebee
Now I wonder
tuner.
where they got
I
that.
was there with
Oh yeah.
you. We were there,
That's
and
right.
it was like, it was so funny, it's because they
Before
were
they
dressing
got,
up the,
restricted on
it
copper.
was Starkist.
friend that-
Who
It
was
was
the
Starkist.
mermaid?
Oh,
Who
it was
the mermaid?
Starkist. It wasn't
Because they were
Bumblebees.
dressing
That's
up
right.
the
That's
mermaid
down
and
to his house,
moving the
they were gonna wait
mermaid
till the
around.
people were
And I
dead.
sat there with my head exploding,
she said,
thinking,
"One day
this
she'll
is
be
an advertising
That one
community
night,
campaign.
someone broke in
You
and
put a
put all
bra on a
the-
woman, you
Then
put
you
a
got the fish
fishtail on a
choked in the
woman,
water.
and you drag her around and show her off on a stage, and that's community. So yeah, I was there. Just sat next to you. We were the only.
Just another
I
day.
sat with the
I was
group
telling Goliath that we said
down
a
at Creative.
long-term family
And
argument
I
settled
had a
this
blast.
last week.
I did.
Because my younger brother lives in Lansing, Michigan.
Listening to them afterwards.
It was all in favor
So
of
that
the
it
governor
is
way back
somewhat,
in the
because
80s.
that was a part of a
Who
series.
raised an emergency manager in charge of Detroit.
But I
Okay.
thought the
Price of $1 million
$350 price
debt.
per person was pretty.
My sister,
Yeah, it
older
is.
sister, worked
I'm
as a school
happy there.
teacher.
I'm happy there.
Worked in
Where they are.
Minneapolis.
I mean, that's
Thought that her and her husband thought that was terrible. How can you take away the rights of the
now it's
people
got to
and
make
blah,
some
blah, blah, blah,
better,
blah.
but
So
Because he said, wait, I
I'm
live in my
gonna
tax
say
dollars.
20 years ago, when opportunity.
I do want it. Well, they just came out of,
The two beauty
they still
salons
wear the
next to
emergency
it, and
manager
then
for 37
new
years,
little
but the
bar
city is in
that is
black
doing
now.
so well.
And this year they have $36 million.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
And
So it can be done.
$650,000.
$1 billion in debt.
And
$36
the,
million surplus.
I was just reading, my wife looks at it every day, I don't know.
20.
Santa Ana or
And
whatever.
the
It says Santa Ana's gonna go
billboard on
bankrupt.
top, that's what they paid the mortgage fee.
$17 million.
You know, and we put an offer
That of
in.
opinion.
And
To me,
it was
Kibasa is
family
playing.
owned at the time,
Kibasa
and
is
it was
playing
not
games.
a negotiating
Shifting money
offer, it
around.
was
He
full
kept saying
price,
it's not
it was
well.
just everything.
It's
Well,
not
I
right.
guess
You have a
because you got a
$17
full
million
price offer, they decided that they would take it off the market because it was maybe too low or something.
Raul is, I like our new city manager because he's saying, let's resolve
I
this.
mean, I'd rather own the parking lot across the street.
Yes, it would be a damn good idea.
Yeah.
Should be developed.
But Kibasa simply kept telling everyone to stop.
So the gas building was
Or
$150,000.
robbing Peter to pay Paul.
The
They didn't want to talk much about this, but they found a $2 million slush fund or fund on the side.
But it was,
He claimed it was to
when we brought
protect
in
the,
structural engineers for,
reserves against inflation.
seismic.
the seismic, it was like
asked me to get a count.
Right.
$1,300,000 just to do seismic.
Right.
So who knew?
And only
about
him
it
and
for
the financial person knew that it was
$175
there.
and closed the door for 20 years.
Well, the
Sounds like somebody should be going to jail, but what the hell do I know?
Well, the jail's an issue, but, I give him credit because he brought that up.
You know,
But do something about it.
and then
He's here
also
3
it
years.
had,
Just kick the can down
It
there.
has that little place next door,
Well,
right?
okay, make it the
Or
one
sorry, the
first.
gravel walk next door. Is that the same?
Increased it, so it does put a
With
problem down the
the-
road.
With the PG, with
He's
the
gonna
gas
solve it.
company.
He's
No,
gonna
you can
eventually
buy that part.
solve what to do with the jail. And, it's one of those things that was built,
that's what, yeah, I
We
guess
wanted
that's
to build-
what you're
that's what
doing.
you're doing.
I
How
was
we take
thinking,
it
what
out.
is it? It's all
so,
just
that.
so
I
it looked
mean,
financially the right thing to do
That
back
should
then.
just be
Yeah.
cleaned up and
Times have changed. So
It's got some
do something.
level
Just
of
don't
something.
bring it up
something.
and
I just
rattle
know
in front
one
of
thing
people and don't do a thing, and
it
that's
was
what
like,
bosses
oh my
do.
god, oh my god.
Well,
And then
that-
when we
that
brought the
sounds like
people
he's
in,
trying to
it was
get
just
get
like
things corrected.
renewed to it. And that
He
was
is.
definitely 20
He
years.
might piss off a few people.
Yeah, that's why it was kind of interesting when he took the job. We wanted to guarantee that they wouldn't let him go.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
that.
I would've
Or
figured
the
third
6 months
and
after the
main
election.
really needs,
Yeah. I don't blame him.
Yeah, I do too.
The thing kitty corner that's across.
Because the sad part is look back and,
Nick's Mix,
you go back a
that-
few years ago
that's
when
like
we had,
maybe
these guys were there forever, city manager, trying to think of his name, he's now,
Dave
But
Reed?
it has like
Dave
no
Reed,
instructions
Dave Reed was
and
there.
all that thing was torn
Rita
down,
was
built
Public
and
Works.
everything.
Walters was
We
police
need
department.
some stuff.
These guys were there
I'm
for
actually
years.
really sad about all the
And,
lost stuff.
and Dave Reed came from the Public Works Department here.
That was
Yes.
a missed opportunity to build
Yeah, I think he was here
like
for
some
30 years.
real usable housing and retail.
We were all set, huh?
That was like,
And
See
they're
you
like
working.
almost the.
We're all in the
We're down
building.
early for the arts this week, but still, it's like a ghost town.
as well.
It's like a ghost town down there.
Well, people aren't living in them. Now they're selling the businesses that are just using it as like a
Right.
business operating.
Good
We apologize for the technical difficulties.
Thank you. It's 7:50, and we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance from Gil.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to put that under the name, I was back and forth.
I'd like to make a notation. We have an excused absence from Michael Gonzalez. And we have approval of the minutes for both March 13th and April 10th. Is there any notations or questions within those minutes?
I move that we accept him.
Second.
And
I have
as
a
we-
question.
Okay, we have to take them separately
Yeah.
because we did not have the people that are here, the members present for March. So those.
We have a quorum for the March 13th.
We had a quorum, but for the March 13th minutes, those that cannot vote today are Janelle McLaughlin, and so you wouldn't be able to vote for the minutes. So if they are approved for item A, then you'll have to
Move
no.
them to the next meeting.
No. We'll have to take a quorum of the votes for today. We have a quorum today, but you unfortunately, you weren't at the March meeting.
Okay.
So you cannot vote today. And that's the reason we also couldn't vote last month because we didn't have a quorum. So of eligible voters, so that's why they were moved to today. This is just for March minutes.
Well, it may also apply to April, does it not?
For- Oh, okay, but let's take them separately because not the same voters are here. So let's just go ahead and start with the approval of minutes for the month of March. Janelle will have to abstain.
So I move that we approve the minutes from the March meeting, item A.
Second.
So that's seconded by Carl.
And a vote of the three.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Technicalities.
Okay, regarding the March 10th minutes, I'd like to make a note.
April 10th.
April 10th. Thank you very much. On the minutes of March 18th, you noted excused and unexcused absences in print, but on the April 10th, you did not note excused or unexcused absences.
On the minutes of April 10th?
Correct.
On the minutes of April 10th, there was 2 members absent. One was Gilad Salman, one was Mike McCrease. If you'll note under the minutes of April 10th, if you look at item number C of those minutes, you'll notice that Michael McCrease was excused at that time.
Okay, and if you look at your April 10th, the way that it was formatted, you see it immediately at the beginning. Excuse me, the March 13th, you see it immediately at the beginning.
Well, they're the same. The only thing that's missing on the March meeting for item C is that there's no record of the vote or motion.
Because we didn't vote. In April, we did not vote because we didn't have a quorum.
Right. Whoa, wait.
I screwed up the whole process.
Didn't you have somebody arrive late?
No, sorry. So for the March minutes, everything's right because we have the consent calendar motion and we approved the entire A, B, and C together as a consent calendar.
That's right.
And then in April, you've got a excused absence, but you have a motion and a second. But you're saying you didn't have a quorum at that time for April?
It was only voting for let me see. Okay, so item A, we could not approve at that time because there was a lack of votes. So that had to be moved to today. So that was separate.
Got it.
Item B, if you'll look at the very top of item B, the motion says approve consent calendar items B and C as recommended by staff.
Mm-hmm.
So the motion down below was for item B and C.
And so just for context, between the motion for item A and B and C, more members showed up and you had a quorum at that time.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So they're both listed the same in March and April. They're both listed as excused absences and the motion that is being considered at that time.
At that time. But right now we're trying to approve the minutes of April 10th. So in April,
I can't vote on the April minutes.
the only person that may not vote today is Michael McCrease because he had an excused absence. That's correct.
And I will not be voting because I was not at the meeting.
And you will not be voting because you were not at the meeting. So unfortunately, that leaves Carl and Janelle, and that's it. I don't know if we can. I don't think that we have enough people here to approve the April meeting minutes.
So those have to go to next month because Mike.
So unfortunately,
Yeah.
April will need to be moved to next month.
Okay.
We're in the same situation that we were last month, pretty much.
But we can't approve the March minutes.
We just approved the March
Okay.
minutes. That's right.
Gotcha.
Okay, and so then C, and then we're at excused absences, and we have an excused absence today of Mike Gonzalez.
I'd like to make a motion that we excuse the absence of Mike Gonzalez.
I'll second the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're starting the new business, and we have the downtown slow zone by William.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the ETAC committee. Just wanted to provide you with a very brief update as to what's been going on with the slow zone. If you recall, the entire goal is to create a safer environment in the entire city, and we focused in on downtown Santa Ana as a starting point. And we have a complete streets plan that we are adopting. We conducted a Safe Mobility Santa Ana study, and of course we zoned in on the downtown area because that's where we have the highest concentration of pedestrians and bicyclists. So this is just a recap of what has already been presented. We are looking at the slow zone boundaries on the Washington Avenue on the north, First Street on the south, Flower Street on the west, and the tracks, and if you can follow the streets that just go south of the tracks to First Street. That's the boundary that we established. And the idea behind this is to remind everyone, businesses, schools, that everything in that slow zone is 25 miles an hour. We did get some feedback from ETAC at the time, and so that's why we adjusted the boundary to make it a little easier to understand. Because if you recall before, the boundaries seemed to be a little difficult to follow. So we've done that. Just as a reminder, whenever we deal with traffic safety, we're looking at concepts of engineering, enforcement, education, and those are called the 3 E's of traffic safety. But we've also added now encouragement and evaluation. Now we've morphed into 5 E's, and so definitely we're incorporating all of those ideas into the downtown slow zone. Just to recap some of the engineering concepts that's come about from the Complete Streets and the SAMHSA study is we're looking at bicycle boulevards, we're looking at some technology like rapid rectangular flashing beacons. Again, just a recap, not going to go through all of the engineering concepts, but just to remind you that we have been focusing on the engineering, and we've been very successful in securing tens of millions of grants, which are underway of being either in design or will begin construction very soon. So this is all very recent information. But the last time, and what we wanted to key in on the slow zone is to use this speed feedback type technology. The signs that you will be seeing in the downtown area are much larger than the one on the bottom left. It's closer to what you see on the bottom right. And of course, the information that we're going to be feeding back is not necessarily the speed limit. It's going to be some branding and information, and just a reminder for drivers to watch for bicyclists and pedestrians, to maybe put their handhelds away and to focus on the road. So we will have all kinds of messaging and information. We will be bringing those ideas back to ETAC, but I just wanted to primarily focus in on the fact that the reason why we want to employ this technology is to help with our enforcement, which is a key. The police, they don't have as many motor units as we'd like so that they can patrol and enforce the speed limits. But we think that with the technology, we can do smart enforcement. We can figure out when the speeding might be occurring off peak hours. Obviously, during peak hours, usually you have congested conditions. Maybe the speeding is not occurring. But when it's maybe off peak, we can figure out where the speedings are occurring. By the way, these mobile units can be moved around, and so they won't get stagnant. We can move them around different locations, and even within a corridor, we can move it up or downstream from the corridor. This went a little too far there.
Okay.
right here. So what I wanted to update you on is our educational and our outreach and marketing effort. We had, this is the same slide that we showed the last time that we had discussed this. We wanted to target business groups, neighborhood associations, schools, nonprofits, eventually leading to a presentation to the city council, and maybe again focusing on the marketing. So I pledged to reach out to these groups and make the same presentation and get their buy-in and get business input from this idea, because after all, if we're going to be slowing vehicles down in the downtown, we want businesses to know that their own clients and folks that are patronizing these businesses needs to be a cooperative, collaborative type effort. We want businesses to buy into this. After all, if we can get folks out of their cars and we can slow things down and make a safer environment, those same folks are going to be going to the businesses. And so we think that there's also economic benefit to doing all of this. So what I wanted to let you know is that this is the list of neighborhood associations and business groups that I've already been meeting with. I've had 3 or 4 meetings already. I will be continuing to have meetings. This is not a one-time thing where I make the rounds one time. This is going to be a continual effort. This is going to be very much like the outreach efforts that we do with schools, with safe routes to schools and that kind of thing. This is going to be an ongoing effort for the rest of the year, and then we'll kind of loop back to the encouragement, and we'll start the entire process over again. It's going to have to be a reminder to everyone accessing the downtown that the speed limit's 25 miles an hour. Also, moving forward into the future, we want to look at some of the arterial streets that are close to the downtown and slowing those speed limits down, namely on First Street. And then I know that the 17th Street is not part of this, but we'd like to also slow down speeds on 17th Street and some of the other arterials in the city. Then hopefully we can grow that downtown slow zone, and we can have that spill over onto the other parts of the city. So this is just a quick list, again, of some of these neighborhood associations and business groups that we've already started to meet with. I will be again doing this for the rest of the calendar year, but I hope that in the summer I can come back and at least make an initial presentation to the council, to the city council. But before doing that, I wanted to come back to ETAC to kind of fine-tune and figure out if we have a message or a brand for that slow zone, because we've been calling it slow zone for the time being. ETAC suggested that maybe we get that from some input from neighborhood associations. Maybe we can come up with a different name. So the feedback that we've received so far is that we need to use social media a little bit more. They've been telling us that maybe we can get on Twitter and use this some kind of a hashtag type of account. We need to come up with maybe some branding, reach out to some of these business groups or neighborhood associations that really meet and discuss things in Spanish. So I volunteered to do that. I haven't yet partnered with schools. I have made contact with the Santa Ana Unified School District Superintendent. We're going to be setting up meetings with the schools and present this downtown slow zone idea. And the other feedback that we've received is that maybe we can create video clips with some of these same school children in junior high and even high school kids to help us maybe produce some videos and then post those on YouTube and so on. So that's some of the feedback that we've received. The schedule has not changed. In the spring, we've been doing outreach to businesses and neighborhoods, so we're on target there. In the summertime, I'd like to go to the city council and give them a presentation as to what we've done so far. Before doing that, I'd like to come back to ETAC one more time and really get your feedback. This is just to give you a heads up as to what we've been doing, and so maybe you can start helping us with the next time that we agendize this for ETAC. to really get some feedback before making a presentation to the council. And then we will be hopefully getting these speed feedback trailers installed in the summer, and then we will repeat. The whole thing will have to get repeated. Again, the outreach to businesses and schools will have to be continual. So this schedule hasn't changed, and so if you have any questions or ideas for our for this topic being re-agendized for ETAC so that we can get more input, I'd be happy to take your comments. But we're pretty much on target, and this is something that's really close to what I truly believe in, is in creating a safer downtown, making Santa Ana much safer than it is today. So if you have any questions, I'd like to answer those.
Yeah, number one, you need a 6th E, expenses. Just a question for you, William. You've been out. You have been out. I know you've been out. I've seen you around, and I have copies of some of your meetings. How is it being received out there?
It's been mixed because some of the feedback from the community is that we can spend the funding differently, that we should maybe be spending funds doing speed humps, and there's been some other ideas. And so I think that we can look at speed humps separately. What I've tried to explain to the community is that a lot of these funds that we're getting are from grants, from the SAMHSA study, from the Safe Mobility Santa Ana study. That study has led to grants, and so once we get the grants, we're obligated to deliver on those improvements. So once I explain that, then they seem to back off. The other is that I think that when staff goes to the community, I think that the community looks at us a little bit suspicious, like there's some kind of a hidden agenda. And so the only thing that I can suggest to overcome that is we're going to have to continue this. This is going to have to be a long process. And when they see that their input is actually being considered and used, then I think the community will partner with staff a little bit better. So I think that there's a little bit of hesitance, but again, this is not something that's going to get solved short term. This is going to be a long term thing, not just this rest of the calendar year. That's just the first phase, but this is going to be something that's going to have to be continued for a long time. So I've taken the leadership to do these presentations myself. I want staff to be right behind me, and they're going to have to, if they believe in it, then they can do, they can be effective in making these presentations. If they don't believe in it, then I'd rather continue doing the presentations myself. But I think that staff really believes in it because the information that I've presented to you has really been put together by staff.
Do you have statistics showing what death rates are or number of people hit in that safe area?
Yes, we have statistics, and so what we want to do is we want to go through the slow zone and any other ideas we have, and then look at the statistics before and after to see what kind of effect we're making.
Okay, because 17th, when you say 17th, that perks my ear up, because I think that's the street we have the majority of people getting hit on is 17th Street, I believe. From past presentations, I don't know.
17th is certainly one of the corridors that that we're concerned with.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. When you referred to your educational with the schools, you said it was similar to the Safe Crossing proposal that they use in the schools, which is through the police, that they come to the classrooms and they speak to the students. So are you engaging this with the police, the school police on campus to interface? Because I've got little kids that'll just talk, you can't cross the street without officer so-and-so, and you have to walk your bike. They know that by 4th grade. So the police are really good allies because they're on campus and they go into the classrooms.
Yeah, that's the OTS grants that the police department gets for the Safe Routes to School program. And yes, we will partner with the police. And yes, I agree that the children at a certain age, they learn that they're supposed to look both ways before crossing the street. But unfortunately, by the time these kids are getting to junior high and high school, They think they know better, and the mutual respect is not there between driver and between pedestrian. And so we need to really target that, in addition to the OTS grant targeting school children of elementary school age.
Also on your list, we had mentioned the Chamber of Commerce, because they're very involved, and reaching out to the Chamber of Commerce in our pre-meeting as a suggestion. And then in your slowdown, are you using the flashing lights embedded in the street pavement as slowdown techniques?
We used to have a lot more of those embedded in the ground, in-ground lights. The problem with the wiring is that it doesn't last very long, and so we've had maintenance issues with that. So we've gone with the rectangular flashing beacons. They're solar powered, and they seem to have a lot more life to them, and they're much more cost effective. So we've gone to the overhead flashers.
I saw the removal of so many of those. Any other questions?
Yeah. Couple questions, couple comments. I have a follow-up on the police, and not specifically the campus police, but the police department in general. I'm just curious, sort of whether we've reached out to them and whether they're a partner for us. I actually had a pretty unfortunate incident where I was crossing in this slow zone and had a police officer in a squad car not stop at the stop sign, continue through the intersection, and then had a long conversation with him about the slow zone, about creating safer street design, and I walked away from that feeling a little feeling like there's a lot of education that needs to be done, is how I'll put it. And we had some of that discussion around that mutual respect. You know, I was not on my phone. I looked and saw the squad car and continued crossing. And I assumed that he had seen me in the crosswalk. He said, well, isn't that I assumed you saw me coming. And so I think we need, I really do believe that there needs to be just mutual respect, but there's a higher responsibility for drivers to ensure that they don't cause bodily harm. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. When you're driving in a metal box, you have the higher responsibility to make sure that there's no one injured. And so I'm just curious in terms of the police. Again, I walked away from that interaction feeling very frustrated and very and realizing that we need to do a lot more education. So I'm wondering what the interaction's been with the police department.
So we have had initial meetings with the police department, and what we've agreed to is for us to begin the outreach to businesses and community groups and just the entire area around the slow zone. And then at the time that we start deploying the speed feedback signs, and at the time that we're going to be looking at data, that we're going to be sitting down with the police department, so that when we reach out to schools, the presentations on the safe routes to school and some of the education to school children will then now include our engineering staff and making presentations on the slow zone and speed limits and some of the information here. So we will be partnering with them, and it'll probably start taking place towards the end of the calendar year, but we want to get this idea out there first. If there is absolutely no support to this slow zone, then it'll be really, really difficult to move forward. But so far, I think that this is going to be successful. So we will be partnering with the PD, and that's a really good suggestion. So we did have initial meetings again, so we will continue to meet with the police.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, I also learned of this is a little tangential, but I learned of a city staff person who got a ticket for taking the full lane when they were biking. And so it just seems like there's this, when it comes to, we talk about the 3 E's, and I just want to make sure that when it comes down to the enforcement piece, that we have a lot of conversations with the police department about what exactly bicyclists are and are not allowed to do in travel lanes, especially when there's substandard amenities provided. The other question I had, if we could go back to the slide with the lists, with the organizations. So is there some significance to the numbers that are next to the neighborhoods listed at the bottom?
I think the number refers to the neighborhood association number.
How many, actually, when they come into the city, so you look at the number, like, if Metro Classic was up there, we'd be like 58 or something like that.
It's like a ID for the neighborhoods. I see, got it. And then which of these organizations have you met with already, and which ones are coming up?
I had asked that information last night to bring you a list that would show, and I just didn't get the information fast enough.
Sure. Okay.
So I knew that question was coming up, and you kind of read my mind.
Okay.
I don't have that, but I can update you with at the next meeting which organizations we've already met. But most of these have already been scheduled, so I will be meeting with all of them.
Can you please share the schedule with the committee members in case we're able to attend any of these?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And again, I just want to thank you for this. You know, I think there are going to be bumps along the way as we go about making the slow zone friendlier to people who are walking and biking. But it's incredibly important, and so I appreciate the work that you're doing on this.
William, is this just 29? Because I see Washington, but I don't see Wilshire. And is it just neighborhoods that are going into the city or close to the city, or did you do a geographical, redlining of certain neighborhoods out?
The idea that I was working with staff on is to focus on neighborhood associations that were close to the downtown, but I don't know if the list has gotten away from us. Eventually, it's going to include all neighborhood associations in the entire city, but I think we focus in the downtown area now. There could be something, a neighborhood association that's actually far away from the downtown. But this is just an initial list. This is not a comprehensive or total list, so that's why, not all 64 are listed. This is like an initial list that I'm trying to get scheduled and have a face-to-face with each and one of these groups. So I don't know if that answers your question.
I just recommend, because you do have, let's just say Floral Park is way far away from Wilshire in regards to downtown. So somebody did not look at the closer neighborhoods to downtown.
You got included.
It's the process that I'm questioning, the process of what actually walks downtown, what actually drives downtown on a regular basis to get to their homes and their neighborhoods that are missing. So I urge the group to look at the neighborhoods that need to drive through downtown to go to their homes, instead of the way north neighborhoods that do not need to necessarily drive through downtown.
Thank you.
And also, just some of these organizations are part of Santa Ana Building Healthy Communities, but if you would reach out specifically to SABHC, then I think they would be able to. They have a good network in the downtown.
I'm sorry, which one was that?
Santa Ana Building Healthy Communities. It's a grantee of the California Endowment.
Maybe in our next planning session we can help you, because there's many things that you have overlap that you can combine a 5 and a 3 and do a one presentation and combine the organizations, because we're very familiar with those organizations to help you out, since it's just you out there.
Yeah, thank you. That's already occurred a couple of times. I've been working with Margarita and with Scott, and they've helped set up these meetings, and I know that one of them had multiple neighborhood association representation. So thank you.
Okay. We're finished Lori, do you have something to share?
Before we move on, would it be possible to do a roll call? We passed that over.
Janelle McLaughlin.
Okay. Carl Denninger,
Here.
Michael Macris,
Here.
and Gilad Salman.
Here.
And Michael Gonzalez had requested the excused absence that you moved earlier to excuse. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have Tay here with tree removal request at 1913 South Holiday.
Good morning, all. I come to you with an item which is a tree removal on 1913 South Holiday. It's associated with a single-family residential project, roughly 1,600 square feet. And the tree removal is required because our city code and planning require for a new single-family residence, two-car garage and driveway that would accommodate that. So unfortunately, in this case, the new driveway would conflict with a street tree. The width of the lot is about 46.5 feet, so there's not a lot of room to squeeze in a driveway without removing that tree. The tree in particular is, the street tree in particular is Arizona ash. Our street tree supervisor, Frank Torres, went out and inspected it, saw it's in healthy condition, and determined a value and a mitigation or a replacement cost, which would be, or a replacement value of 4 trees, which would be delivered to the city. We also looked at trying to see if within the same frontage, if we could plant a new tree, but it looked like there is not that ability. There's already a tree on kind of the west side, or I'm sorry, on the south side of the property. And there are also conflicts with sewer lateral and water meters. So anyway, so as I say, the mitigation would be the gift or the receipt of 4 24-inch box trees to the city.
Did you say
4? 4. Yeah, I believe that's at the bottom. Yeah, the bottom of the final paragraph there on that staff report. And those would be delivered to the city. So that's the end of my report. A representative of the developer is here in the audience if you have questions of me or the development.
I thought we weren't planting any trees, so if we have the 4 trees that are of ash to go to the yard, and there's a moratorium on replanting trees, is my understanding.
They won't necessarily be ash, but I understand that in general.
I thought I saw it was the same. Okay.
Yeah, actually, we did say that, but in general, we may change that. If we're going to put it in the neighborhood, we would get the same species, but that determination will be made by maintenance as far as what kind of tree. On the question of what happens with those trees, I can check with Pedro and Frank, but my understanding is for any trees maybe that are that die out and they need replaced at a particular location, that's what the would be able to happen with those trees.
Thank you.
Sure.
So just so I understand, you are, so this letter, or the recommended, so the recommended action that you've asked from the committee is a receive and file. But in the discussion, you're suggesting that the applicant provide the city. So what action do you need from us? Because the way it's been agendized, it seems like we're not able to actually vote on this.
That is a good question. It's traditionally, these have been receive and file actions. I think it's kind of a long-standing tradition because if this were to be denied by this commission, then it would infringe on planning commission's duties and responsibilities.
I thought that the way it usually the process goes is staff approves or denies these requests, and it seems like you have approved this request. Is that? And then, if those requests are denied, then the applicant has the ability to come to this committee in order to remedy that as an appeal process.
Yes, yeah, and we do approve it at the staff level.
Okay.
But come to you for receive and file.
For receive and file. So we can't vote up or down on this.
Right.
Okay. So then the only question I have is around one thing that I've found interesting about this process is that we're asking, we offer an opportunity for folks to remove the trees and then provide 3 new ones. But we never ask them to cover the costs of planting the trees or maintenance or anything along those lines. And it's always interesting to me that we are asking for 24-inch box trees when we're oftentimes removing very large mature trees. Has there been any consideration given to asking for 36 or 48, more mature trees, so that we're not waiting years and years and years to get the value out of the tree?
Well, a couple of things. The value of the tree is in place. It's an in place value, and so.
Well, there's also a regional value to the tree being mature, right? In the sense.
Yes, and that's typically why there's a bigger number. That's typically why there's it's a multiplier. One tree being taken out, 4 being put back in, and so. It's an in-place value of, in this case, it was around $1,200, and so the value of a 24-inch box tree is around $300. So that's how we came up with the multiplier of 4. I'm sorry, there was another question that you had too.
Yeah, so I've wondered. So has there been, using your calculation of $1,200 for this one tree and doing 4 $300 value trees, has there been a consideration for bringing in more mature trees, maybe 2 of them, but more mature trees?
We have, but we generally defer to our PWA maintenance as far as what type of tree they would like to receive. My sense is a 24-inch box tree is probably easier to plant in certain areas.
Sure.
But I mean, we can certainly consider that. Requiring bigger trees. If the maintenance group can handle and plant bigger trees, if it would make more
or
sense.
even if it requires, having the applicant pay WCA to plant the tree, a larger tree. I always found it funny. We're obviously having a hard time with maintaining parkway trees in this city, and so to go in and plant all these 24-inch box trees. I'd rather see a 1-to-1 replacement if it meant that the tree survives and does well and is mature and has at that point too, it's providing more shade and more benefit to the community quicker. And so anyway, I'll leave it up to the rest of the committee and specifically the chair about whether we should bring it up in the future about changing that policy, but it just was something that over the last couple of years I've been wondering about. So thank you for those.
So what I see is a policy that we've used for the last 20 years with developers, that we remove a tree, they buy equal trees, but we're in a situation where putting the trees in the yard or are we putting the money into an account, waiting to put it in the yard? So with the drought and with the city not planting trees, maybe we need to look at the procedure that we do, that $1,200 goes into a drip irrigation fund for that street, or for the new plant closest in the parkway to that, because that's a lot of money. And instead of, bulking up on an inventory of trees that we're not supposed to plant, or we have no money to water or to attend to. So I think we've got an old procedure that has not evolved into where we are today over the last 4 years.
I understand, and we can. I think that's a good idea. We can.
So how do we bring
Pedro.
back that procedure back to the ETAC to know that procedure possibly could be changing or evolving in a different way?
Yeah, I guess my suggestion is we bring it up and then bring it back in the next couple of months with a.
Into like an escrow account or something like that?
Yes, if I think we would just have to make sure we have that, the mechanism in place right now. Maybe we can do it in the next fiscal year to create that account. And, I think that's a good idea.
So, William, can we put that on our future agenda for the escrow account for the replant for developers? Instead of a trade-off of 4 trees versus 1 tree, that the equivalent money goes into some kind of tree escrow account?
Yes, we certainly can.
Thank you. Thank you, Tag.
You're welcome.
And so number G on the agenda is the tree report with a handout, and Pedro?
Well, good morning. So we will be providing a brief update on the following items on the agenda as listed. The tree report regarding city areas, locations with working irrigation systems, and an update on the dead median trees. So page 2, if you turn to page 2, it's important that we highlight where we are in terms of the schedule that we presented in December and in January to this committee. And I'm going to follow through it here. So on December 12th, we met with the committee to provide a schedule on things we were going to do, and this is basically the same schedule. Sure. So on December 12th, we met, and again on January 9th. In January, we actually made 3 decisions complying with the identifying the priority medians in the city, selecting a demonstration pilot project for median irrigation specific to trees, and we selected, this committee selected 17th Street. There will be a presentation after mine on that project. And also we set...
Pedro, how many trees on 17th Street did we select? You gave us 3 choices.
Correct. I think there was actually specifically up to 144 trees. So the project will be broken up. As you may remember, it's a $100,000 project, and Susie will present on that specific project in terms of where they are after my presentation. In the upcoming months from January through March, we had various presentations, including a presentation by an irrigation specialist in March, and an update on the advertising and scheduling of the pilot project. And forthcoming, we will have, as promised, an update on the health of the city's median trees, as well as an overall assessment of the city's urban forest. And we hope to have that in June, next meeting.
Who will be doing that?
Staff, and we'll have a professional as well. So I'm going to
Professional help is what?
We will have our pruning contractor join.
And who is that?
That's West Coast Arborists.
So that already is in their contract? Because I didn't see that in their contract.
I'm sorry. What
that they would be doing assessing health of the trees?
They will be joining us in the presentation. It's our urban forest. They will be contributing based on their expertise of the pruning program that they have within us. So they will be joining us.
Okay. So in the pruning program, could you provide us what months, what species? Because my understanding that the species are pruned by month? Like all oaks are pruned at a certain time, all sycamores are pruned at a certain time?
Correct. We perform species trim. So basically, sycamores are trimmed this year, for example. Liquidamers were trimmed last year. Jacarandas are trimmed every 2 years, which I believe was last year as well. So the pruning cycle depends on the species of the tree, and there's a certain time period. Oaks, for example, are up to 5 years because they are slow growing. So it really depends. We have over 200 species of trees in our city, so we have quite a bit of scheduling and pruning cycles for that. So we can provide that information.
So when you do a pruning cycle, I'm just driving around looking at your pruning. It looks like in a period of, let's say, 2 months, you're pruning in a specific neighborhood oak trees, and then the next week you're pruning sycamore trees, and the next week you're pruning a different tree by geographic location. Is that correct, or is it by species?
It's by species. So if you see us trimming an oak tree next to a sycamore, it's probably a specialty request.
Okay.
So, service request.
Okay.
So, continuing with the presentation here, and I can go back and we can answer questions after the presentation. In January, we also presented an update of the phased irrigation plan for the medians, where we were going to basically turn on all of the median irrigation to water our median trees. And I'm happy to report that after a couple of months here, a few months, we are 100% activated, so all the trees are being watered in the medians through the irrigation, not manually. And we have seen noticeable improvements. Obviously, we were performing manual watering on a weekly basis, which was challenging, in addition to all of our other services that we provide in the tree program. So we're very happy and content with that. And again, we've also converted some medians to drought tolerant. I believe it's 6, including downtown and some other irrigation areas in the city. So we're pretty ecstatic about that. It allows staff to focus on other services that we normally provide historically. So page 4, I'm going to turn to page 4 here. Excuse me. So there was also a request to provide an update on the median trees that are dead or removed. So it's important to note that, as was mentioned previously this morning, California's drought was officially from 2011 through 2017, and as part of the drought, the state actually prohibited median irrigation in 2015. So we have about 2,200 median trees.
I'd like to go back to that, because the state did not say that you could not water trees. They said that you could not water green grass.
Correct. Ornamental turf, which is grass.
Correct. So the statement of the state said that you couldn't water medians is incorrect. You can water trees, which Santa Ana decided not to do. When Brea did that, when Anaheim watered their trees, and other cities watered their trees, and not the median grass.
Noted. We did water our trees. I want to emphasize that. We performed as much as we could manually. We had 2 water trucks were circulating the city and manually. So I want to emphasize that staff did water trees manually during this period. Again, we have 2,200 median trees, 37 different species in our medians. And again, from 2015 to 2017, medians with ornamental turf or grass were manually watered. In terms of the actual tree removals or dead trees, in a span of 8 years here during the drought, we actually removed 109 trees. On average, we remove historically about 20 trees in the medians per year on average. So that's a historical number. Trees become dead or are removed as a result of just natural tree lifespan, vehicle accidents, and I want to highlight the vehicle accidents. In our city, and talking about the slow zone that you previously heard the presentation on, this encompasses a large percentage of our median tree deaths. This past year, I think we're at 20%. of the 109 trees that were damaged or removed or dead, basically, as a result of vehicle accidents in our median. So that's a concern for us. There's no true way to mitigate that, but it's an ongoing factor annually.
So since this is being recorded and the statistics that you're quoting is that actually our records show we removed 284 trees, if I'm not mistaken,
That
and
is
that's
citywide.
Parkway
citywide.
and medians. So in terms of dead trees, to perceive how many we had, we removed that as of what, January 1st? Last year in 2017, we removed 284 trees.
I don't have that information, but if you provide that information, that's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
I know it was close to that number. So additionally, we lose trees due to vandalism, disease, and just general unknowns. We sometimes don't know why a tree passes or dries up. We just don't know. So some of the information, as you can tell here, the last year and a half, basically, we've been removing or basically catching up on our tree removals as a result of hiring 4 new tree-specific staff. So they were assigned, they're tree workers specifically. So we're catching up, as the number you mentioned previously, Madam Chair. That's why we were able to remove so many trees that were basically on our removal list, dead. So the numbers are creeping back down to normal, 26 this year, as you can tell here, but that's the information that we have currently. I think there was, in the previous presentation, there was mention of a moratorium on tree planting. There is no moratorium on tree planting. We're catching up on priority, which were dead trees, and now we will be focusing on planting. Obviously, it didn't make sense to plant trees during a drought. That was one of the factors as well. We're out of the drought officially, but we still obviously are aware that there's water limitations and things of that nature. So we will be focused on that effort in the next fiscal year.
Pedro, may I ask a question? Sure. On these trees removed, are they replaced?
They will be replaced if it's a viable site. So the presentation prior, for example, the parkway already had a tree. Mm-hmm. Typically, we only plant 1 tree per parkway on a normal residential lot. So if it's a double lot, obviously we may have 2 trees on that. But if it's a typical 50-foot by, whatever length, that's 1 tree per site. So if there's already a tree there, we will not plant a tree there. If there's a conflict with an irrigation or water utility service line, in some areas we have utility vaults in the parkways. Those are limitations as well that we consider. So all of those factors come into play, but generally we will fill the vacancies.
When a tree gets hit, accidents, do we go after the city?
We do, absolutely. So restitution is a factor. We have a police report. We not only, there's a criminal process or whatever associated with that, an investigation, but we also get a report and we assess the tree value, and just like the previous presentation, we invoice the individual.
Where does that money go?
It goes back to our enterprise fund, our maintenance enterprise fund.
So interesting, in our pre-meeting, I was asking about budgets and tree budgets to review at this meeting, and I was told that we could look online, and when I looked online, there was nothing regarding any of the tree budgets. But I did find online a budget framework, engage with key stakeholders, engage in collaborative approaches. So what we were asking in the pre-meeting were specifics, because if you have, in the previous data that you gave us, we have over 1,100 trees that we need to replant. So in our upcoming budget, it ratioed out that it was a 5-year sustainable plan to replant those trees and engulf the existing trees. So that was the specific, use a multi-year approach to achieve financial stability. Those were the questions that were presented for you to present today, is how many trees do we have that are open space? How many within your new 2018-19 budget and your 2019-20 budget you have set up to plant or replant, because we have not planted for so many years those vacancy spaces that, you know, you gave us that needed to be planted was almost a 5-year unapproachable number if we did it the same way.
Madam Chair, in my conversations with Pedro regarding the budget, I was reminded that the budget has not yet been completed, has not yet been presented to the council. What was presented to the council at the last meeting was just a very broad overview, so the numbers were not available, and that's why we didn't present that here today. However, at the next ETAC meeting, once we have the budget set, and it's already been presented to the council in terms of all of the details, then we'll come back and present those numbers to ETAC. And that's why it wasn't included.
But the interesting thing is when it says engaging key stakeholders, engage in collaborative approach to perform and to get to your budget. Now you're saying we can't participate as a commission that is set to just do that we can't participate until you final the budget. So we can't be instrumental at the $50,000 that's usually budgeted for replanting, you know, or know what the watering budget is, or, you know, the dead tree budget, because we have specifics that were given to us last year, but you know, not engaging in a collaborative approach, because maybe this year we don't do the replanting, or it's a suggestion of ETAC, and to use that 100 or 50,000 into doing more irrigation work or having a conversation. So for the last 2 months, our pre-ETAC meetings, those were the points that were discussed, and the points that our city manager is going out to our community saying, we want your feedback to be transparent, honest about problems that we have. We want to engage collaboratively. We want to engage the stakeholders. This commission is the best stakeholders you've got. And so we're cut off from knowing anything about budgets.
So I know that the way that the budget's being approached and all of the information that you've mentioned is correct, but the presentations for the budget have been ongoing. We have scheduled them with the community, and I think what's going on is that we have a structural deficit and we have competing interests, and so we can certainly discuss what budget numbers are being assigned to trees, but the overall budget has competing interests, and so in order for us to do justice to the budget presentation, we would have to present the entire budget to this committee, because again, we have competing interests. If we have one group advocating for trees and a different group advocating for the same funding, but for police or for other services, I think that we need to approach the budget overall, and so that's what the budget presentations have been for. And I know that we've probably had 7, 8, or 9 budget presentations to community groups, including ComLink and some of the other neighborhood associations. So it's not that I'm trying to side skirt the issue, but we can certainly bring the tree numbers here, and we have the ability at a staff level to change those numbers around within the given tree budget.
And that is what I understood, and that's what I understood that we were going to do, and that's what I understood that you know what we're doing for cutting dead trees. What's the plan, and how much is budgeted, and how many dead trees do we have out there? What is the plan for, you know, adding more drought tolerant? To listen to that we have some medians, you know, redone into drought tolerant, but not given us the locations of those medians that have been done in drought tolerant. We have a city manager that's going out and presenting budgets, and many of us have been to ComLink or been to the Planning Commission and listened to the presentation. I spent 2 hours looking at the presentation online, and everybody in the community believes there's $100,000 to do all of 17th Street. all of 17th Street. And you and I and this committee knows that that is not a valid all of 17th Street. So there's miscommunication going out in the community. And if I can show you the 30 or 40 or 50 emails, I'll be more than happy to, all the way up to last night, asking about specifically what's happening to these trees. And the locations of the big dead trees with the boar beetle. So it's frustrating for having multiple pre-meetings asking specifics and then having a presentation that does not include that information.
Once the budget numbers are more defined, then I'd be happy to bring that over. My whole intent from our pre-meeting discussion was to bring those numbers, but those numbers were not yet available because they have not yet been presented to the council in draft form. So as soon as that's done, then at the next ETAC meeting, we can certainly look at the tree budget, and we can see how that breakdown is provided.
And inclusive of that, we have the West Coast Arborist contract from previous years. Has that been renegotiated to be different than it was last year or the previous years? Because we have copies of that, the West Coast Arborist contract.
I'm not sure how far the West Coast Arborist contract goes, but I know that in the budget we account for the annual costs for West Coast Arborists.
Correct. We have a 4 to 5 year contract with West Coast Arborists. It's a standing price, and I think we're on the second renewal of the contract. So we have about 3 or 4 more years remaining on the contract. I don't have those specific dates, but
and that's predominantly a pruning contract.
It's 100% pruning.
Correct. Thank you.
I'll conclude by stating that the staff has heard the committee in terms of what it would like, in terms of planting, operational efficiencies, and things of that nature. But it's dramatically important that we have our own internal balance that we have to do. Staff costs are going up. Our fleet is in disrepair, and for example, the tree trimming truck is $300,000. So we have to balance those things, and they have to be replaced. They can't be on the road, violation of state air quality requirements. So those type of things are competing interests within our own program. So, I can tell you, without going into detail into the budget, that the tree planting is an emphasis that we've heard.
We don't want tree planting. I mean, that is not what we want. And 4 months ago, when Fred Massafier explained that the ETAC wanted tree planting, that is not what the ETAC was asking. ETAC was asking for a care and maintenance program of the existing trees before we go after aggressive tree planting. So when that was discussed, is that he thought that ETAC wanted tree planting. No way. Our whole process for the last 2 years was care and maintenance, the best care and maintenance of our existing trees, the best hazardous trees removed in the area. Those were the focuses of ETAC, not tree planting in any way. So that was the question why we're putting back trees into the yard if we have no budget for planting or no budget for watering, for the truck to be out watering. And it was my understanding the truck was being brought off the road and we were not using that water truck. So if we're not using the water truck, then the new planting, there's no way for it to be watered.
Correct. So I just want to emphasize Public Works' number one priority is the care and maintenance of trees. That's our goal. So I want to be very upfront about that. Safety obviously plays into that. So if we see a dead tree, we're obviously going to remove it so it doesn't fall on someone or cause damage to property. So those are our main goals, obviously, once we get through that. And those are ongoing. They're every day. We obviously get requests outside of ETAC for planting, replacement, things of that nature. And we get requests to defer planting in front of a house if they don't want it, and we evaluate that because prosperity of a tree surviving in an atmosphere where the property owner is not going to contribute to it is really a wasted resource. So we consider that as well. But our primary goal is to save our urban forest and maintain it as within our as best we can. So we are, as William mentioned, we'd be happy to provide an update on budget when we can, and go from there.
So my suggestion is that for the next ETAC meeting in June, that we provide you with the breakdown of the tree budget from operations, staffing, just the entire budget breakdown, and then if there's adjustments that need to be made within that budget, we can still do that as part of the final budget presentation that's adopted by the council. So we still have.
We're
time
not
to do
here
that.
for, you're the experts on your staffing. We're not asking that. It's what the plan is. Is the plan for replant, is the plan for, I know neighbors that have hired like Sims arborists to give to the city that the tree is dead, and the city comes out and sends an arborist and says, well, it's not dead by us, but the neighbor just spent $300 presenting the fact that Sims qualifies it as dead. So, and being told that they're not cutting dead trees. So we're getting our information from our community, where I'm asking, can we have our information from our public works on what their plan is, what their viewpoint is, not how much money is for staffing, but we're looking at it from a community point of view. So if I call, and 3 years ago I had a tree cut down in front of my yard, and so I can call and say, I want my sycamore replanted, and we go out and replant that by a telephone call, by a neighbor or a homeowner, is what Pedro just said. So are we responding to those, or what is our procedure? What is our collaborative plan?
So in the budget for trees, while I know that there isn't a concern with the staffing levels, we want to know what the operating costs are. We can provide that information, but just know that the resources we have on the budget aspect that's discretionary is very limited. So your input's going to be valuable to help us determine what the goals and priorities are. I mean, I think we're proving that with 17th Street. If we identified that there was some funding remaining in trees, what was the goal from ETAC and what was the goal by staff? We identified converting the tree irrigation systems from turf to trees, and so that's what we're doing on 17th Street. So we will have that opportunity for this upcoming budget year for trees. We can always move the funding around within the tree category, but just know that the discretion amount that we have is very limited.
Thank you.
I have a question. So you mentioned that there were historically 20 dead trees a year on average.
Right.
So, I like charts. I appreciate the chart. Can you help me understand the 2, 5, 0, 10 numbers? Are those just lower because we didn't remove trees because we didn't have the staff for them?
That's exactly
Okay.
what. So you'll notice I mentioned on the last bullet there, catch up.
Sure.
That's literally what we did the last year and a half, catch up on all of our, not only tree removals, but all additional services within the tree services program and other programs within our division.
Sure. So these tree removals of 42 and 24 and 26 are for catching up from year
Correct.
2011 to 2015.
Correct. It's important to note that these are medians, as you know,
Right.
and some of them were brought down to stumps to make it stay safe,
Sure.
and then we removed it completely.
stump.
Correct.
Okay. And then just a note, a process note. It's helpful for the public or for people who geek out on city meetings and should find other hobbies that we include staff reports or presentations in the agenda packet that we put out to the public. because otherwise we're all discussing this here, but it's not available to the public until months down the road when we approve the minutes. So to the extent that we can have these available as part of the agenda packet, I would really appreciate it, just from a public transparency perspective.
And the
I-
next
I
thing
can
is
addre-
when
I
we
can
talk
address
about when we talk about dead trees, we ask for dead trees in the city, not median trees, because when folks drive through the city and they see 1,000 dead trees in the parkways and 20 dead trees in the median, we're not giving the right statistics to this commission by just dividing up the trees. We need to look at all the trees.
Going back to the comment about providing handouts to the public, that is mandatory. So when it's not available ahead of time, which does happen occasionally, for instance, today, I didn't have them ahead of time, they're incorporated into the minutes. So, for instance, last month's pilot parking study, the PowerPoint presentation was incorporated into the minutes, as was the skateboarding on city trees.
Right. So we're talking about the same thing, right? The presentations were not available ahead of time to include in the packet. So if that means that they're available the day before and we need to update the packet that's available on the website, then it would be appreciated by people in the public. For example, I went back and I was listening. I had a family emergency, couldn't attend the last minute. At the last meeting, I was listening and I had no information about what everyone was talking about. With city council meetings, there's staff reports, there's everything included. And so to the extent that we can ask staff to have those presentations available by the time you go to put the agenda up, that would be incredibly helpful, right? And it's just an incredibly important thing when we are saying that we're making these meetings available to the public online for those materials to be available to them.
So may I ask, Gil, will you take over the meeting, please?
I'm sorry, you want me to act as chair right now?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure.
Just add one thing, if I may. We're talking about mediums here, but there's also parkways. You give a separate list on those, how many you remove from parkways, separate from mediums?
I'm sorry.
Do you keep records of how many trees you take out of the parkways?
Absolutely, yes, we have that as well.
What determines when you take a tree down?
Obviously, dead, no growth, no greening. If there's significant infection on the tree, significant cavity, more than deadwood, that type of thing around the cavity, things of that nature.
'Cause I've been watching a pine on MacArthur. It's actually in a parkway off of MacArthur City Parkway on it. About 40 foot tall, brown as brown could be, no green in it. It's been over 3 months, still standing. And I'm concerned that falling somewhere, sometime, on someone.
Yeah, well, we can take a look at it and talk offline here, but typically, even appearances in that state still don't make it dead. So, but obviously a thorough investigation would take place if we become aware of it.
Any other comments?
No.
And then just while I have you here and talking about the pines, there were some pines cut down in our neighborhood, and there's just a ton of branches still left in people's parkways and in people's yards. Like they didn't collect up all the branches that they dropped down. So I don't know if we can talk to West Coast Arborists about doing a better job, but I've also noticed it with the palm trees. They end up leaving fronds everywhere. So what should people do in that situation? Do they call you out to see that, or should they call West Coast Arborists? Or?
Well, absolutely, they can contact us. Sometimes they get tied up in the branches and they'll fall down some weeks after.
This was the
Correct.
same. This was the
Recent,
while
right
they were
after?
there. Yeah.
What are the boundaries in that area?
It's in Henninger Park. There's pines like on. There's pines on Pine Street. There's pines on Walnut.
If
I think they've been cleaned up since, so you won't be able to see it. But
yeah.
The day of, there were just branches everywhere.
Understood. We'll talk to them.
Okay, I appreciate it. So, any other comments on item 8 or G? Okay, so let's move on to item H. Susie? Good morning.
I can always just drag this down here. I'm here just to give you a brief update on our median irrigation retrofit project. Just got 2 slides for you today. Project's currently out to bid. We're scheduled to open May 23rd. Goal is to award a contract in June. What I did was I structured this a certain way to give us some flexibility and to allow us to stretch the money as far as possible depending on how competitive the bids are. So this little diagram shows that, again, this project is focusing on 17th Street. We're going to start at the east end and work our way to the west. Our base bid is going to be for the segment from Cabrillo Park Drive to Tustin Avenue. We're going to have at alternate bid 1 that runs from Grand Avenue to the 5, at alternate bid 2 that runs from the 5 to Broadway. And then I also have a line item in the bid for a single median. I want them to give me a lump sum cost for a single median that has up to 6 trees in it, and depending on how the bids come in, we'll have the opportunity to award up to 10 more medians. So goal is to stretch the dollars as far down 17th as we can. And sure. The yeah, and I apologize because this was you don't, but you will. This was put together yesterday. The base bid is from Tustin Avenue to Cabrillo Park Drive.
And how many trees are there?
Okay, I know that there are 62 trees overall within these 3 segments here. On that particular stretch, I'd have to verify that for you if you would allow me to do that. There are 12 medians overall. There are 3 as part of base bid, 6 as part of at alternate bid 1, and 3 as part of at alternate bid 2. So again, base bid is Tustin Avenue to Cabrillo Park Drive. At alternate bid 1 is from Grand Avenue to the I-5 freeway. And then at alternate bid 2 is from the I-5 freeway and west to Broadway.
Susie, would you like us to wait till the end for comments, or should we ask questions as we go?
You could feel free. I only have one
Sure.
more slide, and it's just a little visual of, sort of the concept which we talked about back in March. But again, we're just going to drop in 2 drip irrigation rings. We're going to center them at the existing drip line of the tree. They will be subsurface, covered with mulch, stapled, fairly simple. So that's pretty much my presentation, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have.
Any questions or comments?
If we call back to your office today, can you tell us the number of trees between 1, 2, and 3?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My question is around the base segment versus the other alternate bids. Did we decide that as a committee which one we would start with, or is that something that staff determined?
I was under the impression that we had run the idea by ETAC that we were starting from the east side of 17th Street at the city limit, and we would go as far as the funding would allow us. So we broke up the base bid as the initial section that we know we have sufficient funding for, and then we added the alternates going to the west. And then Susie had the great idea to then also get a line item for an individual island. That way, in case we have even more funding available, then we can just add on to the bids that we receive.
Got it. Yeah, I couldn't remember how we had. I remember, specifying 17th Street from the east boundary on, but couldn't remember that we had prioritized it that way. So yeah, thanks.
The other thought, and I think it was Pedro that shared this with me, was along with that discussion was the thought that it was the gateway coming into the city. So let's focus on the eastern gateway entrance into the city and then work our way over.
Yeah, well, that's why I was asking, right? Because gateways, there's a lot of gateways that along 17th. One gateway is around 17th and the 5, right? And that sort of acts as a really focal gateway for entering into the downtown and through to the Civic Center as well. And so that's why I was curious about that. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, hopefully this will be moot and we'll be able to award them all.
Yes.
The other, thing with structuring it this way is we will have an idea of what the cost is. So going forward, if we want to keep this effort going, we're going to have a better idea what our costs are going to be. This is a unique little exercise that we're going through here. So, it's hard to get a complete handle on how the bids are going to roll in. But, but we'll find out much more, and this is going to give us, this is going to help us moving forward in the future with continuing the effort.
One of the problems we have, a lot of our mediums, is they're humped.
Yes.
Will this be modifying some of that hump in the medium, reducing it?
Right now, no, because the focus is on the water. However, I did also include an add alternate bid item for unclassified excavation, so that if we do get competitive bids and we want to make the decision to begin to level, we have that opportunity. For example, in some of these medians, there are trees that have died and been removed. Those are good opportunities to begin to lower. So I wanted to afford us some flexibility once we got underway.
And there's no modification to the medium as far as improving it, as far as drought tolerant?
As far as the other planting?
Yes.
There's, again, the focus is just on separating the irrigation so that we can irrigate the trees separately. There's no landscape as part of this. However, along with that approach, I wanted to keep this irrigation completely separate from the existing system, so it remains fully functional. So if the decision is made to, re-landscape, it's good to go.
Yeah, because I live in the southern part of the city, and to me it bugs the hell out of me from Costa Mesa to Bristol, and all the work that they're doing along Bristol, and we can't do anything. Just bugs the hell out of me.
Well, they had some big safety issues down at the lab in the camp, so.
I have a question. So it was the city that decided to do the drip rings, or was there any suggestions by your irrigation system team that came, the Toro team, on how to handle that with the huge hump around the base of the tree?
Yes and yes. We consulted with Toro, we consulted with West Coast arborists, we checked in with a few other cities to see what they were doing. We talked with landscape maintenance contractor, our parks department. So we did a little bit of research and weighed everything out.
Perfect.
There's only a handful of options that we had to choose from, and then of course the existing conditions with the humps, and this made the most sense. It mimics the natural rainfall pattern, and with the slow drip, there is no in the existing berms. We're not going to have that runoff issue. We're now going to have the flexibility to water these infrequently and for longer periods. Yes and yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Susie.
Good to see you all. Thank you.
Are you heading out?
Unfortunately, yes, I have a bunch of bidders waiting for me down at the train station. But if you have
Oh,
another
wow.
question, I'm happy to.
That's awesome. I was just, we'll talk about it, I guess, in the agenda items for future meetings, but that update on South Main, is that something that we can
Absolutely
agendize in
would
the
be
future?
happy to
Okay.
present on that for you if you like.
Okay,
Yes.
so we'll talk about it later. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So moving on to item I, comment section. Did we receive any public comments? Okay. Seeing none, we're moving on to staff comments. Any staff comment?
Just that at our pre-meeting, there was a mention to also provide information and some options on the skateboarding. I did not forget, but we just simply didn't have the time to do that item justice. So Corey is working on that item, and so we hope to have that ready for the June ETAC meeting.
Any committee member comments?
None from me.
Okay.
I guess I spout off some of my frustration. I know we've been through an awful lot the last couple of years. I guess the feeling is whatever we budget for trees, let's use them. Let's use the money, plant it. I drive around the city. I drive through other cities, and we just don't look good compared to the other cities. Mediums, trees, all around on it. And I know this doesn't fall into, Bill, I know you've been working hard. I do want to thank staff. I think the presentations you're making out in the neighborhoods are being well received. And it's good that we're out there talking with them, talking about this slow zone, or let's call it safety zone on it, make it safer on it. So from that standpoint, I want to thank what staff is doing. And I know you're under budget concerns right now because of this deficit that we have to face right now. So support you with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone's commitment and time in putting together the presentations, and also to the committee members who are here in reviewing and asking the questions and making sure that we, make the city more beautiful and livable with the trees, and also more, safer and walkable. And so I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate everyone's commitment. Janelle? So moving on, we're going to do item J, agenda items for future meetings. Are there any agenda items from the committee that you would like to see at a future meeting? So I have a couple, and I get the privilege of doing that at the pre-meeting, but it always feels like the pre-meeting is a little bit too late to actually prepare items. So I'd like to take the opportunity for us to just spend a couple minutes talking about it now. Agenda item, you mentioned the skateboarding ordinance update. Is that something that we could agendize for June?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. And then there was a request for updates on dead trees citywide, including parkways, not just medians, if I understood correctly. Is that something that we can get an update on at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was also discussion around a possible update to the developer tree removal protocol around what the replacement fee or process is. Is that something that TAG would need a month or two to work on, and we should bring it later, or is that something we can start discussing in June?
I'm glad you asked that. Our focus and TAG's focus has been on the parking permit district, and we're working feverishly to finish that this month in May. The council anticipates a presentation on that in June, so TAG's focus has been on that primarily. So hopefully once that pilot parking program is completed, then I think that it would make sense that he can then focus on the tree escrow account and that kind of thing. So,
Sure.
so maybe we can schedule something for July.
That makes sense. And then I'd like to request that this is something we discussed in the pre-meeting. There's a ongoing consultant work right now around streetscape improvements and street design improvements to South Main. So if we can get an update on that, I think Susie is the staff person working with the consultant.
Yes, and I think we can do that for June.
Okay, that sounds great. Any other agenda items from my committee members?
William, would it be possible to see what the cost of internal doing these rings instead of just a contract? Because usually if there's an internal ability to do it by price versus an outside contract, while you're running the estimates of an outside vendor doing this, how do you go about saying we can take this in-house for half the price if we assign one person to it or something like that?
Yes, we can kind of do something that I think has been done before, where we bid our on our own project, so we can provide that information. When we open bids, I will have Susie work with Pedro to come up with an estimate as to how we can do that if we're to do that in-house. Now, even when we provide that information, though, we don't have the ability, and that's the problem. We don't have the ability to do it in-house because although the staffing is there, the staffing is responsible for doing other things and not just that. So if we are able to do that and focus, then we can certainly be realistic and maybe even make a decision to do it because it's more cost-effective. But let's get the information over to you per your request, and then we can have an ongoing discussion.
Okay, so is that something you want? You're able to do for June? When is the bidding opening on that?
We are obligated. The bids open, I believe, in 3 weeks, and we have to go to the council in June, or the money will be gone. So our goal is we need to secure the $100,000. We're already doing that with the finance and the accounting. We're already setting that aside.
Right.
But we have to go to the council and award the project in June.
Okay.
So I think that we can provide you with numbers. It'll be already too late for the June meeting, but we
Right.
can certainly provide you with the numbers in July, including what the bid is and including what our internal costs could be.
Okay. Anything else?
Just want to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day, Lori special.
All right, and with that, let's adjourn the meeting. It is 9:25.